What the heck is the difference between lymph node stimulation or MLD, manual lymphatic drainage? What is the difference? Isn't lymph node stimulation the same thing as manual lymphatic drainage? Yes, but most people do not use those terms interchangeably, and I'm going to explain what the difference is and what most people, myself included, mean when we say manual lymphatic drainage. Let's dive in. Lymph nodes. First, what is a lymph node? Well, a lymph node is part of your lymphatic system, and it's really part of our immune system. And they tend to be in clusters. These lymph nodes are like the security system at the airport. It's scanning all the lymphatic fluid to make sure that there's nothing bad or potentially bad that's going to cause us harm. So it's going and it's scanning for viruses and bacteria and parasites and pathogens and toxins and all these things. And if it detects something, it's going to pull in, it's going to call in macrophages and lymphocytes and all of these amazing immune responses to address it before it becomes a systemic issue. So that's lymph nodes. Now, lymph nodes, we have them everywhere. We have anywhere between 600 and like 900 throughout our body. And when I talk about lymph node stimulation, I'm specifically talking about the ones that are more superficial. We have some that are very deep, like in and around our organs and that we're just not going to be able to access. We're not going to be able to manipulate or massage. It's just too deep and it will be uncomfortable and you will end up tightening up as a protective mechanism. So the ones that I talk about, you'll hear me say the total 12 or the specific 7. Those are the big ones throughout our body that we should be clearing in order to ensure lymphatic fluid can drain and move freely. Now, lymph vessels is what ultimately attaches or goes between lymph nodes to the termini, which then returns all of our lymphatic fluid back to our circulatory system. So lymphatic vessels, think of it this way. They are one-way streets. They are one-way streets. They do not have a pump, and the only way that it moves is if we move it, meaning if we are physically moving our body, if we are stationary, sitting still, or wearing really tight restrictive clothing, or we're dehydrated, or there's a whole list of things that will prevent lymphatic fluid from draining. But the lymph vessels is there because what it does is it's ultimately between cells. So remember, our lymphatic fluid is the waste fluid from all of our cells, cellular metabolism. Our cells create energy from all of the blood that goes to every tissue, cell, gland, and organ in our body. And the outcome is waste products. That is lymphatic fluid. That lymphatic fluid is ultimately left in what's called an interstitial space. It's like the space between cells, an easy way of thinking about it. The lymph vessels sits next to it and the lymphatic fluid gets sucked into the vessels. And these vessels ultimately move the lymphatic fluid up, and that lymph fluid has to go through at least one lymph node before it returns to the termini for scanning purposes. So when we say lymph node stimulation, or I'm saying like the specific 7, the total 12, facial node drainage, I'm being very specific about the nodes because the nodes, if those are congested, think of like a locked door. If a door is locked, you can't get into that one room. You can't leave that room, or you can't get into or out of a house, right? That door is locked. If that lymph node is locked and congested, nothing on the other side of it is going to be able to go through to drain at the termini. So I always recommend clearing the lymph nodes and then going and doing something like MLD, so manual lymphatic drainage, which includes things like manual lymphatic massage. So using your hands. Using our hands is an extremely effective tool, and this is really what I like to start teaching people with, is because pressure is so important. All of our lymph fluid is like just below the surface of our skin. So if we're pushing too deep, we're ultimately risking causing a spasm of the lymph vessel, which is not going to drain the fluid. So you could have the best intentions in doing things, but if you're using the wrong pressure, you're not going to get the best results. So I like to start with the hands, and that's usually when we refer to it as manual lymphatic massage. And you can absolutely go and get this done by a professional, by a licensed massage therapist, somebody that has the training. And hopefully they're starting at the termini and then moving the fluid in every direction, like towards the termini. So that's manual lymphatic massage. But there's other tools and techniques that fall into that manual lymphatic drainage, such as a face roller. So like one of those jade face rollers, or a gua sha tool, or a dry brush, or those like wooden tools now that they kind of look like gua sha tools, but they're made out of wood, and you see all the influencers like scraping their body from their legs up. Technically, those could be very effective if you use them properly in the right order. So in order to clear lymphatic fluid, like let's say you have a lot of fluid in your legs. In order to clear the fluid in your legs, you gotta make sure that you clear the lymph nodes between your termini and the problem area. Now you might be like, well, why would I do that? I should just start at the problem area. 9 times out of 10, the problem area isn't the problem because that's where the problem is. 9 out of 10 times, the problem area is the victim. It's the outcome of a problem that's happening upstream. So you may have congestion in your legs because your termini, your collarbones are congested. So you got to clear your collarbones first, and then you have to go through the nodes. Like if you're doing the specific 7, you would then go do like apical, armpit, cisterna chyli, groin, and then you would start to move all the fluid from your lower body. But you always have to remember too that diaphragmatic breathing is so super important when it comes to lymphatic drainage. So make sure that if you're going to start to implement something like any form of manual lymphatic drainage, MLD, you are also implementing the lymph node stimulation. When I started teaching this, people started getting so much better results because they were clearing the lymph nodes. They were opening those doors, which then was allowing that fluid to drain and move through. So give this a shot. Make sure that you understand at least the minimum, the specific 7, or better yet, the total 12, and then start to implement those other tools like manual lymphatic massage or dry brushing or gua sha or a jade roller or even cups like cupping. All of those things are very beneficial, but only if your lymph nodes are open. So that's the difference between lymph node stimulation and manual lymphatic drainage. Let me know below if this makes sense and if now you're going to start to clear your lymph nodes before you do the massage or the dry brushing component. I'm super intrigued and excited to know if this is something that you guys are already doing or if it's something you're going to start to implement. Thanks for being here and happy draining.